Everyone, you are watching Direct Line, Montgomery County Republican Club's show with our special guest today, candidate for District 9A in Howard County in 6 or 8 precincts in Montgomery County, Dr. Saif Rehman of Howard County. Welcome. He's got a great story. He is living proof the American dream is alive and well, and there is an American exceptionalism exists. Take it away, guys.
All right. Thank you, Dwight. And thank you, Saif, for joining us all the way from Howard County. How are you doing?
Good evening.
Yeah. So we definitely I'll start off a little bit for the people who aren't watching Facebook. Some exciting news yesterday for us that they pushed the primary to July and the filing deadline to April. So what was your reaction to that? Just does that make you feel more confident in your race? Does it make you feel like, oh, there's going to be more people jumping in? What was your initial take on that as a candidate?
Well, it was actually kind of expected based on, the decision kind of got delayed. So there was an expectation that it is going to be, and pretty much, it was how far back are we going? Because I know we could push the primary, but we can't push the general.
Right.
So now it's good that you're got more time, but at the same time on the back end, you have just a limited amount of time for the general.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to make the election cycle a little bit more robust. Marylanders like a short window. Our legislature is a short window. We get a lot of things done in a short window. I think it's amazing that there are so many new candidates who are getting into the race now, people who may have been on the fence. And Dwight's saying that we used to have our primaries in September. So
I think he wants to bring that back.
Listen, we need to do more things in the fall in Maryland. Absolutely. We need to do more things. TAWS should be in the fall because,
Right.
Who wants that scalding heat all summer long?
Yum, hot crabs.
only one caveat. July, everybody's on vacation.
That's what I saw a lot of people commenting, like, I'm on vacation. Like, this doesn't help me.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how it's going to translate into early voting or mail-in voting because, it's going to be pretty much of a, different strategy sessions going on with various different candidates and stuff to figure out what to do.
For sure. So let's take a step backwards and get to where we got to this point and hear a little bit about your background. As Dwight mentioned at the top, you have quite the American dream story. So we'd love to hear about, your background and how you got involved in politics and how you ended up deciding to run for delegate.
Sure. So I guess for people that don't know me, my name is Saif Rehman, and I currently live in Howard County. With my wife and 3 kids, and all 3 of them are in the Howard County public school system, covering pretty much all the spectrum. I got the high schooler, the middle schooler, and the elementary schooler. So I'm a first-generation immigrant, and my story is pretty typical as any other first-generation immigrant who came to this country for the pursuit of the American dream. And as Dwight mentioned, pretty much I'm like a prime example of achieving this dream from the hard work that I put in. My journey pretty much started like about 4 decades ago when I came to this country for higher education. Mm-hmm. And I got my, undergrad, my master's, and my PhD over here. And then for the last 30 plus years, I've been working in the information technology area. I've worked for I've worked for large firms, and for the last 16 years, I have my own technology company. Awesome. That I run from Washington, D.C. So I've been involved in various different organizations from the business side and the local side. And I guess to answer your question as far as how I got involved and, when I got involved in stuff, it's, like I said, for the last 30 years or so, I've been involved in working with a lot of different minority organizations to help people like me who are just jumping into federal contracting and stuff to help them out. And then at a stage when my kids started growing and started going into, a certain grade level, that's when I started getting involved with the school system. And that's pretty much where kind of, you get a little peek on what's going on in the school system. And I think it was like 2017 when we had some issues in Howard County with our superintendent. And that's where I kind of, understood a little bit more what's going on, how the board works, and what kind of roles and responsibility the board has.
Mhm.
And at that point, I was like, okay, looking at it as a naive, I guess, person, I said, okay, I'm looking at the 7 board members that we have, and I'm looking at the skill sets that they have, and the roles and responsibilities that they need to have. And I thought maybe, the process is that it's pretty much like a job interview where you run for the Board of Education, people look at you and say, okay, what you're going to be able to bring to the table, what are your qualifications and stuff. And based on that, the person with the best qualification, the person who has a experience and expertise in certain areas that the Board of Education needs, that's pretty much, what people elect. And little did I know it's all
It's
politics.
not like that at all.
It's more like your in-class elections, right? It's a big popularity contest.
In some
Exactly.
cases, it's not even that. It's what letter does your last name start with? So people who
Yeah.
didn't even know that,
Who's the top 4 letters on the
yeah.
Yeah, so that's where, like, I got involved in this process and stuff. So since then I've been I don't know if you guys knew that from my background, but I did run for Board of Education.
Mhm.
I jumped in, I was like, okay, and that's where I kind of learned the ups and downs, and it's all politics, and you got to run as a politician versus as somebody interviewing for a job.
Mhm.
And so since then, I've been involved in politics, and like I said, I've been involved with various different activities locally, which involves with a lot of my children, sports or other activities. I am a board member for a Catholic League National Disaster Organization, which is similar to Red Cross.
Mhm.
I'm also a commissioner for the Maryland Economic Development Commission, which is under Department of Commerce, and a commissioner for Consumer Council, which is under Consumer Protection Division under Maryland Attorney General. And both of these commissions are appointed positions by the governor with Senate's consent. And my other responsibilities, aside from all this, and all my specialties, I'm also a good landscaper and a handyman.
And that's all your unpaid jobs, right? Nicole, he makes us look lazy, Nicole.
Right. He makes us look like a bunch of bums, right? But listen, this is really important, especially in the last election cycle nationally, we saw parents' rights become a really hot button issue. Where do you stand on the rights of parents to know what's going on in the classroom with that transparency and looking at the curriculum, the books that are in the library? Where do you come down on that?
So that's the exact reason I kind of stepped back from, that I wasn't going to run. But when I saw, especially in the last few years, the divisions, the frustration from the community, the parents, the divisions that's been created by our elected leaders. And that was like, okay, what's going on with these, moronic mandates from redistricting issues that we got going, whether it be school or the, now with the redistricting with the districts that we got going. Curran Commission was one of the decisions that came down without any kind of what you call accountability and stuff. They're like, okay, we got a problem, we just throw more money at it, right? Talking about SROs, let's take them out. Talking about defund the police. I'm like, in the last, like I said, in the last 4 decades, I've lived in various different states. Never felt that, we have kind of lost the common sense.
Yes.
It's like, I have it on my website. It's like common sense has taken a vacation and decided to stay on vacation.
Yes.
That's the mode we are in.
Mhm.
And that's that's the reason I was like, okay, we need to bring some leadership, some common sense back to Annapolis, back to, wherever we can, from Board of Education to all these different areas. So with my experience and expertise, I think that I'm a more suitable candidate for the delegate side. And that's why I decided to jump in this time around.
Yeah, and I think you've really, with that common sense comment, really perfectly captured what a lot of people,
Mhm.
even those who are on the peripheral of politics, they vote, but they're not they're not out there knocking doors, are thinking, right? A lot of what we've been hearing, we heard it, at one of Dwight's events on Monday. We heard it. I'm hearing it from people I'm talking to on the street. Is
Mhm.
people, especially swing voters, they don't want to vote for the extremist on the left or the extremist on the right. They want the common sense, at this point, moderate candidate, right? The person who's going to really just focus on the issues and not the political agenda. So I think you really have to capture that. And the other part of this, we can go into, you mentioned on your website a lot about small business, and obviously as a business owner yourself, you I'm sure feel very passionately about business issues in Maryland and making sure, especially now post-pandemic, when so many small businesses are suffering, getting them back on their feet and getting our economy thriving. So can you talk a little bit about your platform on small business?
So as a small business owner for, like I said, for the last 16 years or so, and even working prior to that with small businesses, you kind of understand, how small businesses survive or thrive.
Mhm.
So it's America, I mean, is made up of small businesses. That's what we are as a nation. So my take is, with the experience and expertise that I have kind of developed so far, and with the commissions that I'm working on at the Department of Commerce, I think we need more workforce solutions. We need,
Yes.
more people that understand how common persons survive, how, may it be a job, may it be a small business, and how we can make sure that, they can not only survive but thrive.
Mhm.
And the way to do that is to bring, if you're talking about as a Maryland state, and if you're talking about the Annapolis, how can we bring more revenue? How can we, bring more, I guess, funds or whatever the case may be,
Mhm.
to make sure that we're able to create jobs, to make sure that we're able to create more businesses. What I see is the only thing that people understand, or most of the people that we have right now understand, is to reach out in our pockets. They, the only thing that they understand is tax. Let's
Mhm.
tax people, let's get the revenue going, rather than let's figure out the different strategies or different ways of creating revenue, different ways of creating the workforce. And that's where we're lacking a lot of expertise or a lot of experience, where we can think outside the box.
I
Yeah.
agree. I think there's a lot to be said for having a business minded person as a delegate, because you really do. When you start a small business, it seems like it's kind of a misnomer. Small business is a misnomer because the impact of that business is like dropping a pebble in a pond. You employ people, you provide goods and services. Those people employ other people or they work for someone else. It really is a ripple effect, and the backbone of this great nation, small businesses. I really believe that a pro business stance politically is a winning campaign on either side of the aisle. Coming out of a pandemic, people want stability. And the
Exactly.
person who puts up, that's what I like to call stability ticket, right? Your kids are going to be educated. There'll be no indoctrination. There's not going to be any rioting, none of that. We're going to go back to reading, writing, and arithmetic. We're going to have police if you have an emergency. We're going to have fire if you have an emergency. And in today's environment, that sounds kind of far out there, right? But just think 10 years ago, this was basic. This could not have been a political platform. This is what everybody wanted. And I think America is yearning for that middle ground, that common sense kind of aspect. I think you're going to do tremendous things.
Well,
Absolutely.
I keep hammering back to the, the common sense theme, like you mentioned about the school and we're no longer, you know, providing our students with the ability to succeed. It's kind of like if you are doing, you know, better, you're kind of hammered down to make sure that it's rather than kind of, you know, going you know, one this way, you're kind of going the opposite way, where civic education is out the door, mathematics is out the door. These are the things that you need in order to not only survive but thrive in a global economy. When these kids go to the next level, they are going to be directly competing with everybody around the world, because this is a global economy now. This is a global, you know, society now. So why are we not giving the tools in our kids' hands to make sure that when they go to the next level, they're able to thrive in that environment?
Absolutely. And I guess along that same line of businesses and also jobs, Governor Hogan announced, was it either yesterday or the day before,
Yesterday.
that he's no longer going to require 4-year university degrees for a lot of jobs in government. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's something that we should be modeling in more industries, not just government jobs?
Well, I mean, you know, when I, like I said, I mean, I learned a lot when I got into this, and I understand that not everybody's slated for college. So we should be able to ensure that every kid is able to reach to their, you know, full potential, may it be college or career. So we should be able to provide that opportunity. So as far as, you know, coming back to your question, some, you know, careers do not require college, but, you know, we should be able to provide that kid the tools that they need in order to be able to, you know, get to that level. And I think, you know, some jurisdictions have that down, while others are still trying to catch up, while others, you know, have not gotten the message.
I agree. I think so. VOTEC is a very powerful tool in the lives of children, especially if you go to through a school system where they're academics heavy. You know, if you're a kid and you're a C student, you know, you're struggling to be a C student, but you have really good craftsmanship, you're a very creative type person. These are children that historically are kind of pushed to the back of the room. If we level that playing field, right? And I like what you said, Dr. Rehman, when you were talking about things moving up and down. Really what's happened is, instead of this American exceptionalism, you know, this up and down, our society is moving left to right. We're just getting wide for no reason. You know, when we think about the flattening of the American culture, we have generations of children who don't know the Pledge of Allegiance, you know, who don't understand the sheer power, the blessing that we live under in this nation. They're not getting that. They're not getting that. So now we have a wide society where there is no upward mobility, and everybody's looked at the same pretty much, right? When you think about what Governor Hogan did, it is really epic. He took a big step into combating that thought process that everybody is the same across the board. There's a lot of talent in the private sector that's not degreed. You know, that's fact. And I think this is a long time in coming. 4 years ago, I think it would have been kind of a little bit more controversial, but I think where we are today, it's a really good look for the state of Maryland and all of the state workers as well.
And to your point, Nicole, it's also about redefining that term exceptionalism in education, right? Like, I am useless at shop. I got like B- in wood shop because I asked too many questions. I'm not kidding.
I can imagine that.
You know, your nails are you know, are flammable. Like my shop teacher, and I have shop in my blood. My grandfather was a shop teacher, but that doesn't mean, you know, that kid who thrives at shop, who should be encouraged, not, hey, you're a failure if you don't go to college and study economics, but rather, you know, if you go and learn a trade, you'd be a brilliant plumber or a brilliant electrician. A lot of those kids could be making a ton of money when you got kids out there struggling with a degree to find a job. and
that's
that there's different levels of exceptionalism.
And I think that's very true. So I grew up in Pennsylvania where we do education different. We build schools like prisons and prisons like little tiny buildings, right? Because that's what our goal is. So my high school, my graduating class was 2,500 kids. I graduated number 12. My dad said I should have worked harder, right? He's not Jewish though, Jackie. He's not Jewish.
You know, my parents were like,
work harder. But one of the things that we learned early on is that there's a space in our community for everyone. My dad was an electrical engineer, but he wasn't born, with a silver spoon. And he came up in a time where he had to make a decision on whether to pursue his dreams or raise his younger siblings. And he chose to raise his younger siblings. He was probably one of the first non-traditional students in our family. He went to night school, that whole thing. And we were blessed enough that both of my parents had very professional careers. But my best friend's parents were like, they had a janitorial company, and we never thought any less of them. And we all lived in a really nice community. So I think there's a way to kind of take that stigma away from not being someone who holds a degree, advanced degree, an associate's degree, whatever that is. And it would keep a lot of kids from going to school, figuring it out it's not for them, but they're already $80,000 in the debt, right? Yep. So it really puts them behind in life. And really is kind of shameful when you think about it. Who wants to be 22 with $80,000 worth of debt?
Oh yeah, and I'll give you one further. Who wants to be sitting at home saying my lights aren't working and I can't get a damn electrician because no one's going to electrician school?
You live in the wrong county. Charles County, I got a lot of electricians. I'll send you one over.
One of the things, but when I was going through the Board of Education, selection at the process, I don't know if you guys know Khan Academy. That guy pretty eloquently put that, which is our education system is based on like an 1860 model. Mm-hmm. When we were prepping, people for the factories because we were going through the industrialized revolution and stuff at the time. We have not changed that model. Mm-hmm. We have stuck to that model, even though, things have moved on. It's a computerized age. It's the automation age. So there is a different way of doing things where we ensure that each and every kid, like I said before, reach their full potential. May it be a college or a career, and that's a different way of teaching. Which because we have not broken that mold, and that's why I mentioned earlier about the Kirwan Commission. Mm-hmm. That they said there is a problem. Instead of looking at the problem, defining the problem, and then figuring out the strategy, how to go about, they said problem, there's a nail, let's hammer is some more money.
Right.
No accountability. So for 10 years from now, we're going to figure out that we spent all that money. And by the way, there was no accountability. So we don't know what we did. And the results, didn't pan out the way we thought it would be because we did not have a strategy around it. We just threw money blindly.
It's kind of what we do. It unfortunately, it's kind of what our legislature thinks. And I think to a large part of what you're saying about how children succeed and what our expectations are for our community, one of the other pieces that we really have to take in consideration is safety. You touched on it earlier, people who wanted to defund the police are now walking that back fairly quickly, but the internet never forgets. So we have lots of receipts, as we say, of people who said defund the police, exactly. Until you actually need the police. But exactly. when you take a look at career paths for children or young people, you think police, fire, doctors, nurses, people who are professional people by trade, but more of a service-oriented type of thing. I shudder to think, what happens to the kid who wants to be a cop when they're stuck in the classroom with someone who has no respect for the police?
Exactly.
What happens then? I really feel like as a state, lots of legislators have said this in their own communities, we back the blue, but it's time that someone put their money where their mouth is, Teachers get tremendous tax breaks, especially here in Charles County. They get lots and lots of first-time home buyer dollars and a chance to get advanced degrees on the taxpayer dime. What are we going to do to help protect our citizenry? Because that's what's more important.
Well, I mean, like you said, the common sense, right? So if I ask you as a parent, what's the most important thing? And you'll say, my kids, right? And you'll say, would you make sure that they're fully protected? And the answer would be yes. This is my, first priority. Then why would you go about and turn around and start talking about defund the police?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying. Common sense. People are not thinking, with common sense. It's like if you're left, you're pretty much, this is the mantra, this is the guideline, and now I'm just going to blindly follow it without thinking if it's even right or wrong or whatever the case may be.
So we're going to go into pop quiz time, and Delegate Reed Novotny is watching. So
Okay.
I'm sure as someone who wants to run for delegate, you've been following what's been going on with this year's session. And I know that at least recently there's been a couple of controversial bills that have passed. I know some that I'm particularly not happy with, and I'm sure, Nicole, you know which ones I'm talking about. But what's your take on, if you had to give a grade to our legislature this year, what would that grade be? And can you talk a little bit about some of those bills that have gone through that you agree with, that you disagree with?
So you're talking about like the marijuana kind of a.
I was thinking a little more controversial than that one, but first of all, what grade would you give our legislature this year so far? And then kind of talk a little bit about some of the bills that have passed that you agree with and some that you disagree with. So like if you were there now, how would you have approached some of these?
Well, I mean, coming back to like the marijuana thing, I tell people I'm a doctor, but I'm not that kind of a doctor. So I leave things to the experts. If it comes down to medical need and stuff, okay. But if you're blindly gonna just pass these kind of bills where you say go for it, and then coming back to it, just like our cigarette put a Surgeon General's warning. So I mean, I keep coming back to, like I said, I mean, common sense. So we are not going about and ensuring that we are elected as far as those elected officials for the people, to work for the people. It's pretty much, this is a camp on this side and this is a camp on that side, and we're just going to ram through whatever we think is good for the party rather than for the people. And that's what's going on pretty much nationwide right now.
So I guess I'm going to be overt with it, because
we're going to have to drop it on the Jack.
It's not always the marijuana bills, right? It's not always savings time. So there was a bill that was passed this week that I know has a lot of the Republican base, if not all the Republican base, pretty dang upset. And that's what I've seen people refer to as the Infanticide Bill. Are you familiar with that one that just passed?
No, I'm not.
So, I mean, Nicole, definitely keep me honest here, but essentially says that up to 28 days after birth, essentially, that if there's harm or death caused to the child, the mother cannot be prosecuted for neglect.
So,
right? Did I get that right, Nicole?
You hit it on the head. It's startling, but the push is to get a referendum statewide, so it gets into our Constitution, right? So they want to protect abortion rights through a constitutional amendment here in Maryland. And true to form, there's not one bill that I think that ever gets through our legislature without somebody tacking, a little pork, a little piece of their agenda on. This has been a fight nationally for a very long time. And I remember maybe 2 or 3 years ago that New York was looking at the same thing. Some people down in Texas were raising a little, cane about this whole situation. But what it really does boil down to, when you think of this whole abortion debate, is when do you think life begins? And there are some people who say, even after the child is born, if something happens, within that neonatal window,
okay.
It leaves a lot to be desired for those of us who believe that life starts in the womb,
Yeah. So, I'm personally, I'm, pro-life. And I'm not aware of that bill as far as where it has landed. And based on what I'm hearing from you, yeah, this is concerning.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely raises that question, because to me, that's, regardless of your opinion on abortion, right? This child has been born. It's murder at that point, right? And Delegate Mutney saying this is all a ploy to get Democrats to the polls. Abortion is legal in Maryland. It will stay legal even with the legislation they're pushing this year. So
Exactly.
it really does, as you were saying, like these are people pushing agendas. It's not even about legislation that's in the best interest of Maryland citizens.
Of anyone. Again, this is a political football, and it's been tried in other states. And when you sit down, in those quiet, private moments as an adult person, when you have to look at what's the right thing to do, I don't think there's anyone, that could sit down and look at the way this bill is written and say, this is a great idea. This is what we want to do. But if you have, candidates that are a little lackluster, I said it, go ahead and quote me. You have some candidates that are lackluster and you want people at the polls, you ring that bell. And that's a political ploy.
This is what happens when you have out of 141 delegates, you have only 42 Republicans and 99 Democrats. Then you have 47 senators, only 15 R's, 32 D's. That's 69 to 58% based on Democratic. So if any more of anything, may it be a salt or sugar, is not good for you.
Moderation in all things, without question.
So that's what, as we as people, as voters, needs to understand, and needs to understand representation matters. And in this kind of when you have exaggerated numbers on one side, this is kind of agendas that are going to be pushed just for the sake of, like Reed said, just to get the voters, out to the polls for themselves.
This is why I'll never run for office. I don't play those kinds of games. I don't play games with people's lives for the sake of getting people to go vote. That's
exactly.
Power is intoxicating. Power is a very intoxicating thing. But, one of the things that I really love about Maryland's legislature is that they have to come home to the communities and kind of be answerable to their constituents. I have had the grave displeasure of living in Steny Hoyer's district since I've lived here in Maryland. And I joke, I kid. He's a very kind man. He's a very nice man. But, our politics don't match up. But when you run into him, at the grocery store and he's got waffles, you got waffles, you take that moment and you say, hey, Steny, what are you doing to me? You're killing me here, bro. I got to live in this state. It gives you a chance to actually talk to people. Matt Morgan is St. Mary's, a delegate in St. Mary's. We don't have any Republican delegation here in Charles, so I count Matt Morgan and Jack Bailey and Mark Fisher, all of those guys, as my own. There's not a moment that I couldn't pick up the phone and say, hey, Matt, I've got this great idea. This is what I'd like to do. They are very responsive. And I think having them actually work with us here in the community, Matt Morgan and Senator Bailey, we hand out frozen turkeys at Thanksgiving, and it's an amazing thing that we do for the citizens here in Charles County who are struggling and, young single moms and that kind of thing. He doesn't have to do that. I mean, Matt Morgan is highly electable, but he does that out of the courtesy of his heart. Jack Bailey writes big checks, when we need him to. He shows up at the Oyster Festival and takes people around. That's the kind of responsive government we need, where people actually know the person who represents them. Right. So, I think when I looked at your website, because we do our due diligence, shout out to Jackie, we do our due diligence, and it's wonderful. I love everything you say. I like the part, though, most when you talk about tax relief, because boy, can we use some of that in this state. One of the things that has been made very public is that we have a surplus. Because we were very smart and spent the federal money and kept our own money. And our economy is, booming back, and that's a wonderful thing. But they're coming up with these tax cuts that really don't help. So what would be your plan if you were an elected official now? Do you have any tax relief ideas that would resonate with the voters in Howard?
Well, like I said, I mean, my take on the I guess funding the various different initiatives
Mhm.
is to create various different sources of revenue,
Mhm.
and that needs to be done aside from the taxes. So in case of the surplus, that money needs to get back to the people because that's where
Yes.
that money belongs.
Correct answer.
Yes.
You
A
know,
plus. A plus.
so I mean, we are. I think Reed mentioned that as well. And since I sit on a commission, we discuss these things. We are number one. By the way, upside down. We're number 50 out of 50 when it comes to retirees leaving this state
Yeah.
because we keep hitting people, not only, people that are working, but people, when you retire, you keep getting hit. And that's why we're 50 out of 50. And people don't leave. I mean, people are not leaving for like Florida and stuff. People are just going to like Delaware,
Delaware. Yeah. It's
Pennsylvania.
true.
I'm
It's
from New
very
Jersey, and I thought it was bad there. Like my dad said for years, like I was like, "Why are you moving to Florida?" He's like, "Because I refuse to die a resident of the state of New Jersey."
You know,
They
it's
tax you when
difficult.
you're dead too.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult when you're thinking about planning your future as a working adult. You think about planning your future, and you know, my sister moved from Pittsburgh here because she liked the weather. She was tired of scraping the car, that whole deal. But her property taxes have gone up consistently, and she's
Yep.
like, I can't even afford to live here. I don't know how you do it. And I said, sis, this is not a place where you can retire. You just cannot do it unless you're living on family land and you spend all of your retirement savings paying the taxes on said family land. That's something different. But for the average working person, this state is just not affordable, and that's something that we do have to work on. We have to work on it.
As bad as COVID has been for the last 2 years, that's my personal opinion. We got relief in the various creative ways,
Mm.
at least in Howard County, that we were starting to get taxed. We started getting that 5 cent, bag
Mhm.
tax. There
Yeah.
were more taxes in the pipeline, but I guess the COVID kind of took that away. So that's what I'm saying. We need people that understand how to create the different revenue streams, how to create a workforce solution to
Mhm.
make sure that we can create jobs, can attract the businesses, and get the revenue that way, rather than trying to hit the people's pocket multiple times to fulfill whatever their agenda is.
I agree. Driving economic development is a wonderful thing, because when there is no economic development, the government is going to have its money and it's coming from you. They're
Yep.
going to reach into to your pocket
There-
up to the elbow, and it's going to be painful.
there's
Um,
no free lunch.
So I had a boss who said that no such thing as a free lunch. Kept
Exactly.
that with me.
for
Um,
Yep.
sure.
so as we're creeping up towards the end of the show, are there any other topics that we didn't get to that you wanted to touch on?
No, I think we pretty much hit everything. Like I said, I'm pretty much running on things that I have personally experience and expertise in, and there's various things delegate does, and one of the things that that my strength is that I'm a quick learner. So aside from what I bring to the table, I work with my team, and
Mhm.
that's what I'm looking at, working with everybody that hopefully gets me elected,
Mhm.
to make sure that we get to a more prosperous state.
So I guess on to the fun stuff then. How can people donate to you? How can they get involved in your campaign? Do you have any events coming up?
So I think I mentioned to you right before we I went live,
Mhm.
my better half is going to be joining me back, and we're pretty much planning on something in the near future.
Mhm.
I'm thinking sometime in April. We don't have a set date for
Mhm.
kickoff slash combined event, but as far as getting more information, getting in touch with me, or donating, you can go to my website. It's www.voteforraymond.com, and
Mhm.
it's VOTE number 4 rehman.com. You will see my platform there. You would get to know me a little bit. You would be able to click on Facebook or even go on my LinkedIn page where you can see my professional resume pretty much, or be able to donate if you want to, be able to donate. And there is a form that you can fill if you would like to volunteer for any position. Like you said, I mean, the election's going to go a little bit longer than we expected. But it's boots on the ground, and any help and every help is greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. Knocking doors wins elections.
I thought waving signs won elections, Nicole.
You know what, Jackie?
Combination
Boat parades, that's what does it.
Listen, I love a good boat parade. I'm just going to put that out there. But I will say that, when we talk about people volunteering for campaigns, everybody loves Raymond, right? Come on out, support this terrific candidate. He's got everything lined up. When you look at that website, I looked at the website before I knew that you were an IT professional. And I thought to myself, this is a really nice website. Like, I'm going to find out who did this. It must have been Dwight,
Yeah, look at that. What Squarespace template is this? Like, this
right. Is this Wix? They've got new templates. It's absolutely wonderful. And I like that very first page. It's warm, it's inviting. I think it's just a really good representation of who you are. I think you're going to do really, really well.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, on that note, Seth, thank you so much for joining us. I think, everyone had learned a lot about you tonight. Hopefully you can take this video and share it with everyone who wants to get to know you. And Nicole, thank you so much for co-hosting with me.
Anytime. I got you.
Thank all of you for watching tonight, and we will be back next week with another exciting guest.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night, everybody.